Hello and welcome back to part 3 of my sequence of videos looking at my 3 modern day classic sports cars. My Mark 1 Audi TT, my Generation 987 Boxster S, 987 Gen 1 and my Mercedes SL500 R230. So, first part was the introduction, second part was focused around my TT. Part 3 is all around my Mercedes-Benz SL500, 2003, with about 70, just clipped under 71,000 miles on the clock, and I've owned it for just over 3 years, so I've got probably a good understanding of what this car is like to live with day to day, what the running costs are like, what's the strengths of the car, what the weaknesses are, what to watch out for, and really my summary of my experiences in the last sort of 3.5 years. So just some intro. SL500 beans, it's a 5 litre V8 producing just over 300 brake horsepower, rear wheel drive. It's a 2-seater. Some people mistake the 2 rear luggage compartments behind the seats as bucket seats because they have seat belts, but they're not. They're intended, those seat belts are actually for luggage and strap luggage down rather than small children. And it's got a retractable hardtop, so it's coupe or open roadster. And I think the first thing to say about the SL is when you look at it is the size. It looks wide compared to the Porsche and the TT. It is, but not for very much. It's more the length, and the length of the car, it's 20 centimetres longer than the Porsche Boxster S, and it's a whole half a metre longer than the Audi TT. But the real difference is the weight. So the SL500 comes in at about 1,845 kilograms. That's seriously heavy. That's heavier than a modern day 5 Series or 7 Series BMW. And it comes in a whole 325 kilograms heavier than the Audi TT. So that's probably the same as carrying 4 average male adults in an Audi TT. So that's a significant weight penalty, and the difference to the Porsche Boxster is even greater. It's a whole 450 kilograms heavier, and that tells the way it drives. And this becomes more Gran Turismo GT car, luxury roadster, rather than out and out performance car, which is what the Porsche Boxster S and the Audi TT 3.2 is. If we have a quick look around the car, it runs on 18-inch alloys. The interesting thing with the alloys is actually the tyres, and the rear tyres. I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see this, but the rear tyres are exceedingly wide. They are actually 285 width, which is wider than an Aston Martin DB9, believe it or not. The other feature on the SL500 of these are the side vents. Ignore the V8, that's an aftermarket change that I think someone put on the car before I owned it. But those side vents are replicated here on the bonnet as well, and I actually really like those touches. When you look at this, the 500, and compare it to the 3.5 litre V6 SL350, visually you're not going to see any difference. It's the same car, other than most of the 500s or 350s have the numbering after the SL. Mine has been debadged, so it is specifically just SL, which I kind of like. They both have the twin exhaust, which you can see here, and this is where it differs to the top of the range SL55 AMGs, which have quad exhaust. Let's take a quick look inside the car. I'll take you around. The first thing you'll notice, like all the cars that I've got, they're all full leather, and this is what you'd expect. You've got to think this car is a 70+ thousand pound sports car 15-16 years ago, so it's exactly what you'd expect. The difference here is the seats, I think, for the SL are more luxurious than either the Audi or the Porsche. They're certainly softer riding than the quite hard and firm Porsche seats. That's the wear, I think. driver's seat lumbar support's always a good wear indicator. I don't think that's bad for a car of this age. The passenger seat is absolutely immaculate. And then if you pan around and have a look at the rest of the car, this has got the darkened wood, which I prefer to the lighter wood. It's just a bit less 90s really. What I want to point out here is the quality of this is absolutely second to none for me. It's a step above the Porsche and the Audi. And I always look at the stitching. The stitching here, it's like it's just come out of the showroom. It looks absolutely sublime. And I just pan around there, it's the memory seats, heated seats. Really, really nice quality. You look at the communication system though, is clearly showing its age. This is pre-smartphone, so lots of complexity, lots of buttons, really thick manual. You have no idea what anything does nowadays, and although it's got inbuilt sat-nav, it is atrociously outdated. So again, really, it's got limited use now. That's your auto. They all came in auto, 5-speed autos, the early R230s, and it really suits the lazy nature of the 5-litre V8. It's a very torquey engine, can pull and accelerate from really low down the rev range, and the 5-speed auto really just picks up and it accelerates with big surges, rather than the 3.2 V6 TT and the flat 6 Porsche Boxster S. They're really revvy engines that want to get high in the rev range and keep it on the boil. You really don't need to drive it like this. This is a big GT cruiser. And then the switch behind there, you pull that up and the hardtop retracts into the boot within about 12 to 15 seconds. And then there's a whole plethora of different switches around here, where you've got your parking sensors, your ABC Sport, which is actually called active body control, and that's your very clever hydraulic suspension system. You can disable that, withdraw your wing mirrors. There's raise and lower the suspension as well, and you've got your ESP. And also in the front left here, you've got your winter or sport stroke standard setting for just changing the way the engine delivers power if it's very wet conditions. Have a look at the back. There's a button here, just press that button there once. The seat comes forward and you can see these two storage bins at the back of the car. Handy for smaller bits of luggage, but they are quite small. And then these are the infamous seat belts here that are not for people. They pull out and then they retract down below, down there, and they reset into that, and it gives you some restraining if you should decide you wanted to fit any luggage or bag behind the seats. In truth, in 3.5 years I've never used them, and I've never seen anybody in an SL use them before either. And then the other nice feature on the SL, I think, is the side cabin units here. You press that and the whole assembly, should I say, there you go, open up, and you've got actually quite deep and large storage cabins there, which is quite nice. Let's take a look in the boot. So the boot's a bit of an issue for the SL500, and the first thing I'll say is when it rains and you lift the boot up like I'm just doing now, you'll find that rain water just runs off the boot and it just goes straight into your boot, sort of down in this location, and that's on both sides, and that causes quite a lot of water ingress, and that's a problem for the SL. And I'll show you how in a minute. The first thing you notice about the boot is you've got this cover that goes over the top, and that's there to make sure that when you put luggage in the boot, in this recess in here, that when you open the hardtop folds on top of this, so your luggage underneath is safe. So I'll just lift this up. I'm not using the handle because the handle's actually got a crack in it and it comes apart, and then you can see the size of the boot. It's okay, it's enough for a weekend away. You won't get golf clubs in there, and you won't get a big suitcase in there either. So it is a little bit limited, certainly compared to the versatility of the TT and its rear folding seats, and also the two compartments under the bonnet and boot of the Porsche Boxster S as well. Most SLs, and I'm not sure if you can see it very easily, this is all completely dry because it's all garage, this car, but you can see the discoloration, and that is in every SL500 I've ever seen. They all suffer this, and that's because of the water that's come in. And even if the car's garaged, if you drive it at all in the rain, water will get into the boot. So again, and this wasn't garaged for the first couple of years, so it was a real issue. And if I lift the compartment here, this is the main issue, because you've got a couple of pumps here. The top one's the roof pump, and there's one below it, which is the PSE pump, which is for the central locking and slow close features. If you ever do open the roof and find that there's a problem with the roof, and when it's in its collapsed state in the boot, it won't collapse back down, there's actually an Allen key there that you can just see there, and you can use that, and that overrides the roof, so it actually closes properly. And that's always a tip. Just incidentally, both these pumps, as you can see, the bottom one, which is the PSE pump's got covered in plastic to protect it from the water, which say ingresses into the boot. Both those pumps have both been replaced in the 3 years I've had it, mostly due to water contamination. And also on the right hand side is the battery. Two batteries in the SL500. This one's the ancillary battery, the Ansell's battery. This drives everything on the car apart from it doesn't start the engine. So everything is driven from here. If you put your car into long-term storage, and I mean that anything from probably a week or 2 weeks duration, I would suggest you hook up this battery here to some form of sort of C-Tech trickle charge to keep this topped up. If you keep this topped up, your main battery in the engine compartment should be fine. So I'll just close that and shut the boot, and then we'll go and have a look under the bonnet. Just give you a quick look under there. Boot release is just there. Just walk round and have a look here. We'll only have just a quick 30 seconds around. So this is the engine, 5 litre V8. Just a couple of things to note here. Windscreen washer, which I always like to focus on, is on the side there. Your oil filler cap is just there. And you'll notice that is your starter battery. I only replaced this about a month ago actually. So that's the starter battery. It does nothing other than start the engine, and it'll keep being trickle fed from the Ansell's battery as well. One thing you haven't got here is a dipstick. So this was full electronic. So when you get in the car for the first time, you can put it into a self-test to check oil and oil consumption, which I do regularly. So there's no oil dipstick on this particular engine. I was told when I first bought the car that these can consume about half a litre of oil every sort of 500 miles, depending on how the car's being used. Well, in 3.5 years, I've never ever had to top my engine up. Now that may be the way I drive it, but I'm not always careful. I'll do open it up at times as well, and I've never suffered any sort of oil usage at all on my SL500. Okay, let's shut the boot up. Just carefully. There you go. Okay. So, what else have I got to say? So, let's have a look at running costs then. So, and this is one that I know a lot of people sort of messaging me about how much these cars cost to run. These are great value cars to buy. They are expensive cars to run. You can't look at this as a 8-10k sports car. You have to look at this as a £75,000 prestigious GT car that comes with expensive parts that are fitted. So to give you a summary, miles per gallon, I'm get about 26-27 miles per gallon, which I think for a 5 litre V8 is actually really good. And it's almost exactly the same as the Porsche Boxster S. So I think fuel consumption is really good, but that's not the real cost driver. The cost driver of these cars are faults and failures. So in my time, I've had 2 front suspension units replaced. The SL500 came standard with ABC, active body control. Very clever suspension system, hydraulic suspension system that keeps the car very flat through corners and braking. It is very, very expensive to fix, and I've replaced both front suspension units in the last year. You're looking at about £1,000 each corner just for the replacement struts. You've then got a couple of hours to break into the ABC system as well. So really big cost there. You've got, I had the ABC pump itself, which is in the engine compartment, replaced. I've had the PSE pump, which is one of the pumps in the boot, replaced, which is the central locking and boot closure. And also the electric roof motor and flaps have also been replaced on this. So a lot of issues, a lot of niggles. In its 3.5 years, I've had 2 services. That's an A service and a B service. I would absolutely make sure that if you're interested in buying one of these cars, you make sure that it's had its servicing done every 2 years as a minimum, regardless of mileage. These cars need to be looked after and cared for, and they're still expensive to run. So just please be aware that regardless of how few miles a car's done, make sure it's had at least a service and an oil change on a every second year basis. So with all that considering, plus the MOTs, plus the servicing, it's had 4 new tyres, again 150 to 200 pound a corner. I've replaced both batteries, the auxiliary battery and the starter battery, and I'm looking at just over £6,000 I've spent on servicing and repairs and running of this car. That excludes insurance, and it excludes road tax as well. And in that time, that's about 17,000 miles I've done. So it's equating to about £2,000 per year running costs, and that's averaging just over 5,000 miles a year. Hence, they are expensive cars. You need to buy, if you're interested, buy one that's absolutely got no faults on it at all, because of those running costs. So, strengths. What do I love about the car? I think the engine is big V8. There's nothing better than listening to a V8. It sounds absolutely fantastic. And the 5-speed auto gearbox suits the type of car this is. A GT car, the 5-speed auto is great. Later R230s came with 7-speed. Feedback there is, yeah, it's good, it's more advanced technology, but do you know what? It's not a premium on the 5-speed, because it's so torquey. The engine doesn't care where it is in the rev range, it'll just keep pulling. The ABC system, the active body control, the one that costs all the money, is standard on SL500s, wasn't standard on 350s. And that can be a benefit of buying a 350, because most didn't come with ABC. And that removes a lot of the complications and risk associated with the complexity of the ABC system. The complexity of the car is you're buying into a wonderful technology-laden car, and the roof is a work of art. The way it opens and closes, it was the world's first ever brake-by-wire car. When the car detects it's raining through the wipers, the brake-by-wire will intermittently apply pressure onto the brake pads onto the disc to keep your brake disc clear of water. I mean, that technology is so advanced, considering this is a 16-year-old car, but you need to be aware that things do go wrong when you've got high technology-led parts that have been fitted. I think the quality of the interior stands out and is a step above the Porsche and the Audi. But in reality, there should be, because it's a car that was almost twice the value, or twice the cost when new. And the other thing for me is, you're buying into 50 years of Mercedes SL legend. And wherever you go, people comment on this car. They will get rare of these cars, and they will get less of them. And people do come and talk to me about this, more so than the Audi and the Porsche. What's the weaknesses of it? What I don't like? My wife and I call it Marmite. You either love it or you hate it. and that changes from day to day, week to week. So it is a Marmite type of car, just because there's so many niggles, there's so many problems, and we are one that are fastidious with its servicing. We get everything done what it needs doing. So yeah, that's certainly one of the weaknesses. You've got to understand that this is a GT. This is a Gran Turismo type of car. It is not a B road car that wants to be hustled along. This is better on A roads or covering huge distances effortlessly fast in complete luxury. This is where the SL sits. And I mean, I commute in some of my cars, well, in all my cars I commute, and generally if I had the choice of the three for a Monday morning commute, these are the keys that I would go for, because do you know what? It's the one that you don't need to concentrate as much. It's absolutely effortless and you can get there quickly. We've covered some of the mechanical problems. I think the ABC suspension units, as I say, they're expensive, about a corner each. Wheel arches. The only thing that's wrong with my car is a trait of the SL is, and you'll see here, the rust. And you can see here where this is badly been repaired before, and it's starting to rust here on these wheel arches. It's renowned. That's going to get done. I'm looking at getting that done in the next couple of months as well. So that's a problem, as is the one that I've talked to you about, is the water ingress into the boot, and especially when you've got some clever electronics in there, and pumps and that can fail. Value. So there's little difference in value between the SL500 and the SL350. However, the top of the range 55 AMG is significantly more expensive to buy. For me, the SL500 seemed to be the optimum buy at the moment. I think there's so much more car than the 350, and that's because if you're buying an SL, you're not buying it to be sensible, and you're buying the SL to buy into the legend. For me, it's got to be a V8, and I know you've got the issues with the ABC system, and you've got the complexities, but if they're the same price, then for me, why buy a V6? It just doesn't feel right for me. So I think V8's got to be the way. But yet, the SL500s are only about a third, certainly less than half of the 55 AMG, and the 55 AMGs took the SL and tried to make it into a real true performance car, and they came with another 50-60% of power, up to about 475 brake horsepower. And I'm sure fabulous cars, but I've got cars for speed and pace, and I always believe that much over 300 brake horsepower is probably wasted on the road, unless you're doing a lot of track days. And for me, I wanted a GT, and I think that the 500s, it's that optimum time, I think, to buy these. If you look at what the value's at today, you can have SL500s from as little as probably 5 or 6k, all the way up to well north of sort of 10-12k. And it's not about mileage, it's not about specification, because they're all highly spec'd. It really is down to condition, and you've got to make sure the service history is absolutely spot on, and there's absolutely no faults. Any fault on a car, be wary, that fault could cost you 4 figures. And that's what you've got to think about. Certainly if you're coming to negotiate, any potential problem with these cars can be very, very expensive. So you need to find one that's had all its servicing done and has not got a single problem on the car. And then for future values, I've had my car for 3.5 years. I don't think my car's lost a penny. It's cost me a lot to run it, admittedly, but that cost of running is negated by probably a complete lack of depreciation. And I think if you look at where the previous generation of SLs have gone, some of them to stratospheric costs now and value, but the generation before, the R129s, they're expensive now, and they're significantly more than the R230s that are comparable in mileage and condition. These will be heading north. These will be appreciating classics. You've just got to bear with them that they will cost a lot to run from year to year. So my summary is, service history is probably the most vital important when you buy an SL. So get one that's got full service history. If it's been parked up and stored away for periods of time, treat with caution. These cars for me are better used, low usage every year. You park them up for year after year, you're just going to run into untold costs. So be really, really cautious when you're buying a car like that. Most are parked up for several months over the winter. Mine is. I take mine off the road probably about November time and bring it out around April, May. So mine's off the road for 4 or 5 months. It's on a C-Tech triple charger. You inflate the tyres, and I've never had an issue with it. But just be careful. Service history is the most critical. Don't get anything that they've got any faults on. You'll lose nothing in depreciation. If you keep it fault-free, if you keep it well serviced, I assure you, you won't lose anything in value. But you do need to budget probably about 2k a year on running costs. And again, comparing it to the Boxster and the TT, they do sound similar on paper, but they're very, very different cars. Like I've already talked around. The advantage with the SL500, you've got the cold weather coupe, and you've got the open top convertible, and that's something that neither of the other cars can live with. And as I say, if you're doing some commuting in it, then the SL500 is an absolute great car, as long as you can live within miles per gallon. And I think for a 5 litre V8, 26-27 miles per gallon is actually quite a reasonable consumption rate. So that's my review. I love the SL500. Sometimes I hate it when it's another problem, but when it's working, it is a fabulous car that gives myself and my partner a huge amount of enjoyment. It's to go up a drive up into Wales, or to go up and across country, and there's motorway and A roads and then some B roads, and it's a whole mixture of driving. Then it's the SL keys that I go for. You've just got that air of luxury, and you've got that option of, if the sun comes out, open the top and you've got some wind in the air driving. So I absolutely love the car, but it does come with a degree of risk, and it's probably the most risky of my 3 cars when you come to buy them. So that's the end of part 3, the SL500. I'm going to do part 4 is going to follow on in a couple of weeks, which is going to be, not surprisingly, that's going to be my Boxster S987 Gen 1. And then I'm going to do later ones, give you an update on how I'm going with all these cars. I hope it's been informative. That's it from me, Rich. If you like it, give me a thumbs up, or subscribe, or both. Give me a comment, message me if you need to, and I'll speak to you in a few weeks' time. Thank you.